that
Okay.
means, yeah.
Right, inelastic, right? Okay, so I will ask you for E, if E is larger than 1, what is your conclusion here?
If larger than 1, it will be elastic.
Okay, elastic. So E equal to 1.
It will be unit elastic.
All right, good.
As
So, right, E equal to 0.
it is perfectly inelastic.
All right, perfectly inelastic. Right, so we have some conclusion for E. Elastic, inelastic, or unit elastic, or perfectly inelastic. Okay, perfectly inelastic just simply mean that when you higher or lower the price, Q, D doesn't change. Okay, it's mean that there are some product that when you just higher the price significantly, but Q doesn't change. Okay, so we can talk about medicine that we use for our cancer. If we have cancer or like any kinds of disease, right? Because if we don't get the cancers, we die. So it means that whether the price of these kinds of medicine is very high, but we still want to buy the products. So it means perfectly inelastic. Okay. Right, so let's talk about the second part of today's chapters. Is about application. So when we know whether the demand or the supply is elastic or inelastic, so what is our, you know, application here for the firm decision in our realistic scenarios? Okay. Okay. So now about firms, right? The thing that they care first is about revenue. So when firm want to determine revenue, so they will use supply or demand. What is your answers? They will use supply or demand curve to determine revenue. So what about Nhi? Yes, Nhi.
We use demand curve
Right. So any reason for you to say so?
because the the one who give the money to buy is buyers that use the demand curve, not the supply.
All right. Okay. Pretty good. Yeah. So the thing is that if we use the supply, we don't know about the reaction of the people given the price. But if we use the demand, so we know that at different price, people will demand a different quantity from our products. So we just need to supply the quantity that exactly equal to the QD at that price so that we can record our revenue. Okay, it means we use our demand to determine our revenue. Okay, so what is the important here? So for firm, analyzing the demand before they make any decision for their product is very important. Okay, so for example, look at this figure and then you see that the demand is very steep. Okay, all right, it's not very steep, but it's pretty flat. And then E is larger than 1, so we have the conclusion is elastic, right? Elastic just simply mean that people are very extremely sensitive to the changing price. So when your firm higher the price a bit, they will just leave your firm and then choose another company which offer the same products. Okay, so it means that what is the best decision for firm in this case? Should the firm offer any discount to the customer to gain more revenue? So what is your answers? Should the firm do so? All right, we know that consumer are very, sensitive to the changing price. Okay, so what about Lam? Yes, Lam.
Yes, so my answer is because the elastic demand
Mm.
is quite high. So, to increase the total revenue for that company, the company can consider lowering the price.
Okay, so lowering the price, right? And then let's come back to my question is that there are many policy, like many kinds of action made by the firm to lower the price. Like I told you about offering the customer a promotion or something similar to, yeah. But this also have an impact on lower the price. Okay, so here the thing is that if we lower the price, for example, from 250 to 200 by offering the customer a discount, so the result is that we can earn a larger revenue of 2,400 compared with the case of 2,000. All right, so that's why it means that it's not, all the case that we should high the price to earn larger revenue. Because in this case, when consumers are extremely responsive to the change in price, so by offering the consumer the product that is having a discount or promotion or some kinds of, good, strategy for the price, so the firm can have a higher revenue. And if they can manage the cost well, so they can have a higher profit as well. Okay, right. So this is when the elasticity of the demand is small, like larger than 1. But what if we have E to be smaller than 1? So will you think that we should offer the discount to the customer? All right, here. So let me ask Ngọc Hân. Okay, so Ngọc Hân. Yes, Ngọc Hân.
I think we shouldn't when
Mm.
it is inelastic
All right, so why you say so?
because people is not so sensitive when the demand is inelastic. So even when you increase the price, people still need to buy that product, so they will admit.
Okay,
So
or like,
it means
yeah. Yeah, it means they still need the product, right? And then even if you lower the price, right, so people will buy more. But compare with the loss in sales for you, and then the increase in the number of customers that buy your product. So the loss in sales is larger. So at the end of the day, your revenue is lower. All right, okay, so thanks a lot for all of your contribution here today. Right, so the thing is that if you analyze your products, and then the demand is pretty inelastic, so we should not offer the kinds of discount like program and then promotion for the customer in this case, because it can bring you some negative impact on the revenue. Okay, so again, we have some conclusion is that it's not all the time that promotion work, right? So if you don't get the reaction of the customer as what you want, so right, basically you cannot hire revenue and then hire your market share with that kind of strategy. So that's why in reality, for some multinational company like Coca-Cola and Pepsi, before they launch their new product, or like they offer some kinds of promotion or marketing campaigns that related to discount, okay, or getting more customer, they usually study elasticity. This is considered to be one of their essential study before they have their pricing strategy. Okay, right. So that is about our application. So it's why you see that for the products that is less elastic or inelastic like electricity, we never see that kind of discount, right? No way. But we only see that the government is trying to higher revenue by hiring the price for electricity used per kilowatt, maybe just a very small amount, but they can receive a significant revenue from all of that actions. Okay, right. So that means that we need electricity, even if the price is higher, but we may decrease our consumption, but it's not significant at the change in the price. Okay, right. So again, that's just about the application. Okay, right. So the last point for chapter 5, right, is I told you about the shape of supply and demand, short run and long run. So anyone, can you explain to me why we are having the difference between short run and long run? Yeah, it's kind of very steep in the short run. Steep, right? Which means dốc, right? Đà Lạt, right? Very steep. So why is very steep in the short run here, but it's getting flatter? As we have in Ho Chi Minh City, right? For the road, very flat. So, what about, is it Thảo? You also raise the hand. I don't know whether you're raising the hand or not. So, yes, Thảo, are you raising your hand? No, right? Oh, yes. Okay, so, Thảo, are you raising your hand? I think that just maybe you forget to lower your hand for the previous question because it's just still there when I don't add anything. So, is it your raised hand for this question or you forget to lower your hand?
I just forget, but you can ask me and I
Okay,
can
all right.
answer.
Okay, so Thảo, right? Can you tell me?
For me, there is the difference between short run and the long run is that in the short run,
Mm.
there is a the supply curve will shift to the left
Mm.
more stronger like than the in the long run. That means in the long run there will be a smaller distance between the supply chain.
Okay, but right. My question is not about the shape, Thảo. My question is about the shape of the S and D. Okay, because you see, we are talking about electricity. It's not about the shape, right? So, S curve and D curve are pretty stiff in the short run, but it's getting flatter in the long run. So, any reason for that? Yeah, that's my question. All right, but I'll let you try. So, it's fine. Yes. What about Quỳnh Mai? Yes, Quỳnh Mai.
I think in the short run, the supply and demand are inelastic, so the shape is steep, and in the long run, they are elastic, so the shape is flat.
Okay, right. So, yeah, if we know that they are more elastic in the long run compared to the short run, so what is the reason behind why consumer and buyers and also seller are more responsive in the short run, sorry, in the long run compared to the long run, short run here, right? Why they are more responsive in long run compared to short run? Okay, so let me see. Maybe I will call Phương. How many? Okay, wait a second. Phương Nhi. Phương Nhi, how many time here? Phương Nhi 4 and Phương Nghi. Phương Nghi. Why I don't see your name? Phương Nghi Hồ. Phương Nghi. 4-2. The first one. Okay, so Phương Nhi. Right, I think you raise the hand first. Yes, Phương Nhi.
I think that in the long run, the customer will buy more substitutes so that the demand curve and supply curve is more elastic. So
All right.
flatter.
Okay, yeah, a reason. Okay, very good. Right. So the thing different between short run and long run, and then people reaction is just simply about the time, right? So it means time is relevant here. So as we have more time, we will have, like more preparation for the change. So if we talk about short run, right, let's talk about demand first. So gasoline. Right, so 2 years ago, or like just 1.5 years ago, the price of gasoline is very fluctuated. It's very high. Okay, so if we just have maybe a day to react to the change in price, so we may not decrease the consumption for gasoline immediately, right? Because we need gasoline for our motorbike and then for our transportation. And then in an urgent scenario, we still need gasoline. So we are less responsive to the change in the price if we have a very small amount of time. But if we move from one day to maybe a week or a month or like 3 months, so we have time to respond. And we can look for other alternative to use instead of motorbike. We can switch to other public transportation, and then we can use electrical vehicle. Or like very simple, right? You just need to walk from your house to the school, okay, to save the cost, right? So as we have more time, so we will, will be more responsive to the changing price. That is for demand, okay? And also for the supply, right? So when the price increase, firm they want to produce more because they want to sell more and then get a high revenue and higher profit. But the thing is that their production capacity is limited. Maybe they have the storage to store only 1,000 products, but when the price is higher, they want to sell 2,000 products. So it means they need to prepare for the change. Okay, so as you give them more time, they can expand their production easily. They can hire more, skilled workers, and then they can import more modern machine from the foreign country for their production expansion. Okay, so more time, so they will be more responsive to the change in price. Okay, so that's why time is the thing that is relevant here on how firm, how people, supplier, buyers make decision between short run and long run. Okay, so that's just all point to be covered in chapter 5. All right, so now let's just practice before we move to the last chapter today. Okay, this question. Okay, so use your calculator next to you and then practice the calculation with me. Oh, right. I see I have a very fast answer from Huyền. Okay, so Huyền, please. Yes, Khánh Huyền.
I choose the A answer in elastic.
Okay,
Because
right. Yeah, can you explain to the class? Yeah.
okay, I using the midpoint method of the quantity first is thì em nói tiếng Việt nha cô.
Okay, it's you can try using English first. Okay, because right, the rule is very important is that we are not allowed lecturer to use Vietnamese because the international environment, ton of student, you guys are here for that reason, right? Okay, so so can you try your best to use English here?
600 plus 500 divide 2 is equal to 550 and the midpoint of the price is $1 plus 0.8 plus 2 divide 2 is equal
Divide by
to
2.
0.9 and I use the formula the percentage change in quantity divided by percentage change in price. So I have the answer equal to 0.82
Yeah.
and it is less in elastic.
Either of you here can apply the formula and come up with the answer A. Inelastic, okay, smaller than 1 for 0.8, so inelastic. Okay, very good. Okay, so this question, please, before we have last chapters. All right, so yes, Minh Trang, I think that the new face, yes, Minh Trang.
My answer is C, raise the price of the cinnamon rolls because all of the other answer left is to decrease the revenue, but the question is to increase, so the answer is C.
Okay, very good. Right. So you see the relevance of electricity here, right? Consumer, they do not respond much, so inelastic. So here we learned that now we can hide the price a bit to bring more revenue to our firm. Okay, so be careful when we hire or lower the price. It must be within an acceptable amount, because if you do like do exercise one too much, so it can damage. It can bring you the reward effect on the revenue. Okay, like if you raise the price too much, so now consumer will look for other alternative, and then they don't even have to stay to buy the product from your firms, even though previously they are not responsive to the changing price, or they're less responsive to changing price. Okay, right. Yeah, that's why government they practice that under like that electricity very well. Okay, they hide the price of electricity, but it's still acceptable for all of us, right? So we still use electricity and then bring the revenue to the government. Okay, all right. So very good. Okay, so all right, one remaining chapters, and then we can end today's section. All right, I know this section is pretty heavy for all of you, but right, you guys here for a reason. You guys are all talented students. So okay, let's try to finish this section, and then all of you can have dinner with your parent. All right. Okay. So okay, last section. Okay, last chapters already. Hope that you still have energy to continue. All right, maybe only 15 minutes for these chapters. So here, What did you see? We also talk about supply and demand, but there is a new guy here. That is the government, right? So what is the role of this guy, the government, for the buyer and seller in the certain market? Okay, right. So basically, there are two main parts to be covered in chapter 6, but I will focus on the second part, right? So the first part is that, in chapter 1, we need governments to prevent inefficiency, right? So government or policy maker, they can use price controls like price ceiling and then price floor to control the price of the product. So the price of the product will fluctuate within that range, cannot go above the price ceiling and then cannot go below the price floor. Okay, right. So that would be the first point for chapter 6. The second point is also a policy used by the government to, to control the market. That is about the tax policy. Okay, tax policy. Right. So is tax good or bad? What do you think? Is it good
I
or
think
bad? Yeah,
I think
okay, so
it's
Thư. Right, tell me.
yeah, I think tax is good because it can support the activities of a country, organization. Somehow some high tax can prevent business from developing, but I think somehow it's good.
All right, okay, so yes, that's two answers, right? So we know that tax is good or bad, so it depends. If you pay, so it's maybe a good thing for you, right? Because you pay cash out. But it's good for the government because they receive the money from the people that they will use for the public purpose, right? They can use it for national defense, for developing country to attract the foreigner and invest in our country too, right? Building road and infrastructure. Okay, right. So it means that the government collect tax for certain purpose, right? So now let's see what is the impact of tax on a certain market of demand and supply. All right. So at first, I give you this example. This is the market without tax. All right. So here, the market of pizza without tax, you will buy a piece of pizza and then you pay 10. Seller also receive 10. Okay. So no surplus or shortage here. Right. Okay. Now we have a tax that is imposed by the government on the buyers. So here, when you buy a piece of pizza, you will pay more. Okay. Right. So is it good or bad? Is it a negative force or a positive force on demand? It must be negative, right? Because given the tax, so you pay more, it means that for some of you, you don't want to pay tax, so you can leave this market and then buy another product without tax. Okay, so it means that now some of you leave the market, so it reduces the number of buyers. So when the number of buyers is lower, the demand will shift to the left, okay? Because we learned that is a factor that can shift the demand. All right, so now the demand will shift to the left, right? But you measure the shift, so it will shift downward by an exact amount of the tax side. That's what you observe first, okay? Right, so here, the tax side is 1.5, so the demand will shift downward by an exact 1.5. So now, what is our new equilibriums for this market? Would it be this point? Would it be this point? Okay, the first point here or the second point? Can you tell me? The first here and the second here. What is our new equilibriums for this market? Anyone? Okay, so Khánh Linh.
So I think the new equilibrium point would be the first one is the intersection between the S1 and B2.
Okay, so it means you say that this is our equilibrium, right? Okay, so thanks a lot for your answer. Right, so we know that equilibrium is where we have supply and demand intersection. So this must be the point, not this point, right? So here, what we see is that when you have the price, when you have a tax of 1.5 on the buyer, so usually you expect that buyer will have to pay all of that, but it's not, right? So if buyer pay all of the 1.5, the price for the product must be 8.5. However, the price, the new equilibrium is somewhere here. Okay, it's in the between of 8.5 and 10. And from in the next figure, you can see that the price for the pizza is 9.5. Okay, so now, can you tell me what is the effective price received by the sellers and paid by the buyer in this case, given the tax? Right, so can you tell me? Okay, what is the effective price received by the sellers and paid by the buyer as we have taxed? Right, that's my question. Yes, anyone volunteers? Yeah. Okay, so Nhi, yes, Phương Nhi.
I think that the effective price for the sellers is 0.5 and for the buyers is $1.
All right, but yeah, okay, yeah, I understand what you mean, but I think that is just like the amount of money that they pay more or they receive less with tax, right? Okay, but I mean here is about effective price. Okay, so let me, tell you that concept again. Right, so effective price received by the seller is that the amount of money that seller received after tax, and the effective price paid by the buyer is that the amount of money that paid by the buyer to the seller, okay, after tax, right? So what did you see here? Okay, like Nhi just answered. Previously, seller, they received 10. Buyer, they pay 10 without tax. But now, seller, they receive only 9.5. But buyer, they pay 11. So buyer, they pay $1 more than before. And seller, they receive $0.5 less than before. Okay, so 11 is the effective price paid by the buyer with tax, and 9.5 is the effective price received by the seller with tax. Okay, so what is your conclusion here? Tax is on buyer, but seller, they receive only 9.5, right? So it means they share the tax burden with the buyers. So do you know why they will have to do so? Why they will have to share the tax with the buyers? Because there's not a tax on them, right? But why? They share the tax with the buyers. Okay. Okay, so Lam, yes, Lam.
I think that the reason why sellers must share the tax with buyers is that they need to encourage buyers to continue buying, because if they let the buyers burden the tax alone, it may be too high for them and it may discourage them from buying. But
Okay.
yeah, so that's my opinion.
All right, very
Yeah.
good. Yeah. The thing here, like Lam just mentioned, all right, as we learn about invisible hand, and then we know that buyer and seller, they will follow their best interest to make decision. Okay, so here there must be a win-win situation for buyer and seller, so that buyer will receive some benefit and seller, they also receive benefit from the tax of the government, right? So the thing is that if we don't have tax, seller and buyer, they will, supply and then they demand at 500, no surplus. But given the tax, so that is a negative force on the demand. And then here, only 450 buyer remain in the market, right? But firms, the supplier, they produce 500. So they have a surplus of 50, right? So how can they get rid of that surplus? They will have to lower the price. Okay, and they lower the price just simply mean that they accept to share the tax burden with the buyers, right? So when they share the tax burden, it means that they give some kinds of incentive for the buyer to return the market, because now it's not all the tax that the buyer pay, but it is shared between buyer and seller. Okay, right? So in that case, when buyer, they can buy the product, and then seller, they can sell the product, so they can get rid of that surplus. And then that would be a win-win for them. All right. Okay, so yes, as some you just mentioned about the tax burden. So this slide is for you to know that we talk about tax burden as the tax incidence, how the tax shares among buyer and seller, right? So here buyer pay $1 more and then seller gets 0.5 less. So in total, we have it equal exactly to the tax side. Okay, right. So now one last question for you. That is a tax on buyer, right? But if we have tax on seller, will the outcome changed or not? Right? Do we receive the same outcome or different outcome as we have for tax on buyers? Okay, so let's examine. Right, so in the next slide, you see that tax on seller. So the curve that is affected at first would be the supply. All right, so that is the thing that I need you to not be confusing. Tax on buyer, so demand is affected. Tax on seller, so the supply will be affected. Okay, so now you see this is a negative, right? Seller receive less, so some of them will leave the market because the price with tax is too small for them, right? So now when they sell, they also have to pay tax. So the supply will shift to the left, and then it will shift upward by an exactly tax sign 1.5. See the upward here? Right. So now what is our conclusion? So if we move to the next slide, you see that the outcome is similar to what we observed before, right? Buyer, they still pay 11, and seller, they still receive 9.5. All right, so the conclusion here, just one sentence for all of you to take note, okay? It doesn't matter the tax, whether the tax is on buyer or sellers, because every time both of them must pay tax. Okay, the only thing that makes different here is that who pay more, right? Seller or buyer. All right, so that means you cannot say that tax on buyer, so buyer pay more. Tax on seller, so seller pay more. It is wrong to say so. Okay, because here tax on seller, but you see who pay more? Buyer, right? They pay 11, but seller only pay 0.5. Okay, so now, if you want to know who pay more, there is a secret because it's linked to chapter 5. Okay, electricity. So let me talk about it in a very simple way. If it's easy for you to leave the market, so you pay less tax burden. Okay, it means that easy for you to leave the market. It means you can find other alternative instead of using the product with tax. So you are not the one to pay larger amount of tax. But if it is hard for you to leave the market, right? So when the price of the product is higher with tax, you still have to buy the product. So in that case, you are the one to pay a larger amount of tax. Okay, right? You see my point? All right, so the conclusion for that point is the more elastic the demand or the supply, the more tax burden falls on them. Okay, right. So here, that is all the conclusion we have for chapter 6. Okay, all right. So let's just have a look at some questions before we can end today's class. Okay, so let's talk about this one. All right, 5. What is your answer here? Okay, I think this class is very active. Yes, what about Khánh Linh? Okay, Khánh Linh. Yes, Khánh
My
Linh.
answer to this, yes. So my answer to this question is D.
Is
It's
what? Can
D.
you? It's D. All right, it's D, right? Can you
Yes.
tell me why you choose D?
Because we have discussed earlier is that the burden of the tax will always be shared by the buyers and the sellers, no matter no matter who the tax is placed on. But which market, whether it's the supply, the buyers or the sellers who have to pay more will depends on the elasticity.
Okay, very good, right? All right, so yes, we use electricity to talk about the division of the burden of tax, like Lynn just mentioned, right? So your answer is D. Okay, the last one. We have the hand from Chang and Queen, and Lamb. Okay, all right. So, okay, guys, just one thing I want to tell you. It doesn't mean when I don't call you, so I don't remember you. So as long as I see your name to be repeated here, and then I can remember all of your face, so it means that I can also add more bonus for you. Okay, right? So make sure that I can remember your names, so that will be an advantage for you. Okay, so I think I will call Minh Trang, right? The first one. Yes, Minh Trang. Right.
My
What is your answer here?
My answer is B.
Right.
Because as you said before, if we have the more elastic demand, we have to pay more tax. So the question here is the seller have the larger share of tax, so they will have the demand in more elastic than the supply.
Okay, very good. Right. So the answer is obviously like we have discussed and then Chang just explained. So that would be the option B, right? Demand is more elastic, so it's easier for demand or like buyer to leave the market, so they will pay a smaller amount of tax burden, right? But seller will be the one to pay more. All right. Okay. So I think that's pretty enough for today's section. I think that this class is very active. I really love to teach the class here. Even though we study online, we have a lot of things to discuss, but some of you still maintain the energy to be here with me at the end. All right. So maybe I will give you this exception for today's section. Right. So we may not have to do the quiz immediately, but I will open the quiz at 9 p.m. today. And then I will I will close the quiz at like 16. Okay, so you just need to go do it at home and then have lunch, have dinners, and then wait until 9 p.m. to do the quiz. Okay, right. So that will be an exception point for you. And okay, just about the quiz, there will be 12 MCQ, and then you will do it in 15 minutes. Okay, 15 minutes for 12 MCQ. And the rule is very clear on e-learning. 2 questions will appear at the page. When you click the next button, you cannot go back to adjust the answer. Okay, so make sure when you click the next button, you are 100% sure with your answer previously. Okay, all right, so that will be some of my exception for this class. Okay, hopefully that we can see each other after that holiday. Okay, so Thảo, you want to ask me something?
Yes, I have a question. If at 9 p.m. today, I have some emergency work, so I can take part in the quiz. Can you have some more solution for us?
All right, because that is an exception for you. Otherwise, we have to do the quiz immediately and then the class. Okay, so only 2 choices for you. Do the quiz now, or like wait until 9 p.m. Right? Have dinners and do it, right? Because you know that when I allow you to do the quiz later, it's like an exception. I never do that for other class. They must complete the quiz. Okay, so please try your best to manage the time. Okay, and right, and then if you have something like some unexpected event happen, like electricity go out, like when the go out, or like yeah, things like that, or like some technical issue, please evidence. Okay, with evidence. Otherwise, I cannot consider. All right, but at 9 p.m. today, I will open the quiz, and then I will close at 9 and 16. Okay, right. So all of you need to pay attention. We only have 15 minutes to do the quiz. Okay, all right. Any other question before we end the class here? Yes, Lam, is it you raising the hand to ask question from me?
So sorry, actually I forgot to raise it
Okay, lower the
later.
hand, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so all right, I think it's time to end the section. So happy Tet, everyone. We will see each other after that, right? So yes, hope that you can have a good time with your family. And right, I really hope to see you in person, right? I think I have a very good, you know, how to say that, right? I really love the class, like very active. Okay, okay, so see you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Okay,
See
see
ya.
you. Bye. Thank you. Thank you for
Goodbye,
joining.
teacher. Thank you.